In the year 2357, humans reign supreme as the only species who can speak to animals, giving us unrivaled power and painting giant targets on our backs. Ex-soldier Zach Morrison and his wolf Razor dock their ship on planet Novaria, the stench of smoke and blood assaulting their nostrils. A nearby human settlement lies in ruins, buildings smashed to rubble, bodies strewn about like broken dolls, the work of the powerful bear-like Krellans. If Zach can't use his rare gift to communicate with these creatures and discover their hidden motivations in time, the fragile peace between humans and aliens will shatter. Zach is the only one standing between the human race and a brutal interspecies war that could wipe out billions across the galaxy. With humanity's future on the line, he'll need every ounce of his animal translation skills and warrior instincts to stop the bloodshed before it's too late. As our ship touched down on Novaria's surface, Razor let out a low growl. He could smell the smoke and blood in the air, even from inside the ship. I reached out and scratched him behind the ears, trying to calm him down. "Easy, boy. We'll get to the bottom of this." I stepped out onto the planet's surface, Razor following close behind. The first thing that hit me was the stench. It was like a slaughterhouse mixed with a burning building. I pulled out my scanner and did a quick sweep of the area. The readings showed no signs of life in the immediate vicinity. We made our way towards the human settlement, or what was left of it. Buildings had been reduced to piles of rubble, and bodies were scattered everywhere. Men, women, and children, all dead. Razor sniffed at one of the corpses and let out a mournful howl. I knelt down to examine one of the bodies. The wounds were consistent with Krellan weaponry, but something didn't add up. The Krellans were supposed to be a primitive species, barely out of the Stone Age. How could they have caused this much destruction? As we moved deeper into the settlement, I noticed something strange. There were no signs of Krellan bodies anywhere. It was as if they had attacked and then vanished without a trace. Razor suddenly perked up his ears and started sniffing the air. "What is it, boy? You got something?" I asked. He took off running towards the edge of the settlement, and I had to sprint to keep up with him. We reached the tree line of the dense forest that surrounded the settlement, and Razor stopped dead in his tracks. I looked up and my jaw dropped. Hidden beneath the canopy of the trees was a sprawling city, with towering skyscrapers and advanced technology that rivaled anything I had seen in the Galactic Alliance. This was no primitive civilization. Razor let out a bark and wagged his tail. I looked over and saw a group of Krellans approaching us, flanked by their animal companions. They were massive creatures, standing over 8 feet tall, with thick fur and razor-sharp claws. I reached out with my mind, using my ability to communicate with animals to try and establish contact. At first, the Krellans' companions were hesitant, but Razor managed to convince them that we meant no harm. Over the next few hours, I worked to learn their language and customs. It was a slow process, but my ability to communicate with their animal companions helped bridge the gap. I discovered that the Krellans had been living on Novaria for centuries, building their cities in secret to avoid detection by the Galactic Alliance. But recently, the Alliance had begun secret mining operations on the planet, destroying the Krellans' sacred lands and driving their animal allies to extinction. The Krellans had tried to negotiate with the Alliance, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. In desperation, they had launched the attack on the human settlement as a last resort. I felt a sense of anger and betrayal wash over me. The Galactic Alliance had lied to us all, painting the Krellans as primitive savages when in reality they were a highly advanced civilization with a rich culture and history. And now, because of the Alliance's greed, innocent lives had been lost on both sides. I knew that I had to find a way to stop the bloodshed before it escalated into a full-scale war. But first I needed to gather more information. I turned to the Krellan leader and said, "Take me to your sacred lands. I want to see the destruction for myself." The leader nodded and gestured for me to follow. Razor fell into step beside me, his hackles raised and his teeth bared. We were heading into the heart of the conflict, and I knew that the fate of the galaxy rested on my shoulders. As we made our way back to the ship, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in my gut. The Galactic Alliance had a lot to answer for, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. I fired up the comm system and requested a direct line to Ambassador Dominic Voss. He was the human representative to the Galactic Alliance, and if anyone could help me expose the truth, it was him. "Zach Morrison," Voss said as his image appeared on the screen. "I hope you have a good reason for contacting me directly." I took a deep breath and launched into my report, detailing everything I had discovered about the Krelans and the Alliance's secret mining operations. Razor sat by my side, his eyes locked on the screen, as if he too understood the gravity of the situation. But as I spoke, I could see Voss's expression change from one of mild curiosity to outright hostility. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and fixed me with a cold stare. "Morrison, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but I suggest you drop it," he said. "The Galactic Alliance has no interest in your wild conspiracy theories." I felt my blood boil at his dismissive tone. "This isn't a conspiracy theory," I snapped. "I've seen the destruction with my own eyes. The Alliance is destroying the Krelans' sacred lands and driving their animal companions to extinction. We have to put a stop to it." Voss let out a humorless laugh. "You've been spending too much time with your furry friends, Morrison. The Krelans are nothing more than primitive savages, and their so-called sacred lands are a goldmine of resources that the Alliance needs to fuel its expansion." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Voss wasn't just dismissing my concerns. He was actively defending the Alliance's actions. And then it hit me. "So you're in on it, aren't you?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You're working with the mining corporations to exploit Novaria's resources." Voss's face twisted into a sneer. "Watch your tongue, Morrison. You're treading on dangerous ground." "I won't let you get away with this," I said, my resolve hardening. "I'll expose the truth no matter what it takes." Voss leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "I'm ordering you to return to Earth immediately, Morrison. If you continue to interfere with Alliance operations, I'll have you arrested for treason. Do I make myself clear?" I felt Razor tense beside me, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice, but I knew that fighting Voss directly was a losing battle. I had to be smarter than that. "Crystal," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, "it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Ambassador." I cut the comlink before Voss could respond, my mind racing with possibilities. I knew that I couldn't take on the Alliance alone, but I also knew that I couldn't turn my back on the Krelans. They needed my help, and I was determined to give it to them. I turned to Razor, who was watching me with a questioning look in his eyes. "We're not going back to Earth, boy," I said. "We're going to find Tharok and Skal. It's time to take this fight to the next level." Razor let out a bark of approval, his tail wagging with excitement. Together we set a course for the heart of Krelan territory, ready to forge an alliance that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Alliance. As we flew deeper into Novaria's dense forests, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the Krelans' hidden cities. Towering skyscrapers rose up from the treetops, their gleaming surfaces reflecting the sunlight like mirrors. It was a testament to the Krelans' ingenuity and resilience, and I knew that I had to do everything in my power to protect it. We landed on the outskirts of the largest city, where Tharok and Skal were waiting for us. Tharok was an imposing figure, standing over 8 feet tall with a mane of shaggy fur that covered his broad shoulders. Skal was even larger, with teeth as long as my forearm and eyes that glinted with fierce intelligence. I approached them slowly, Razor by my side, and bowed my head in a gesture of respect. "Tharok, Skal," I said, using my ability to communicate with their animal companions to convey my message. "I come to you as a friend and an ally. The Galactic Alliance has betrayed us all, and we must work together to stop them." Tharok let out a low growl, his yellow eyes boring into mine. "The Alliance has destroyed our sacred lands and driven our animal brothers and sisters to the brink of extinction," he said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. We will not rest until they have paid for their crimes. I nodded, feeling a surge of determination course through my veins. I have a plan, I said, but I need your help to make it work. Together, we can expose the Alliance's illegal activities and put an end to the destruction of Novaria's ecosystem. Skarl let out a bark of approval, his massive tail thumping against the ground. Tharok looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and then, slowly, he reached out and clasped my forearm in a warrior's handshake. "We will fight by your side, Zack Morrison," he said, his voice filled with a quiet strength, "for the sake of our animal companions and for the future of Novaria." As we stood there, united in our common cause, I felt a sense of hope and purpose that I hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but with Razor, Tharok, and Skarl by my side, I knew that we could overcome any obstacle. Together, we would expose the truth and bring justice to the Kreelans and their animal allies. The Galactic Alliance had no idea what was coming for them. The night was dark and still as Zack and Tharok led their strike force towards the mining facilities. The human and Kreelan warriors moved in perfect unison, their animal companions stalking silently by their sides. Razor's fur bristled with anticipation, his keen senses alert for any sign of danger. As they approached the heavily guarded compounds, Zack signaled for the team to split up. He and Razor would take the lead, using their unique bond to infiltrate the main facility and gather intelligence on the mining operations. Tharok and Skarl would lead the rest of the strike force in a diversionary attack, drawing the attention of the guards and creating a distraction for Zack and Razor to slip inside unnoticed. With a final nod of understanding, the two groups parted ways. Zack and Razor crept along the shadows, their movements fluid and silent. They reached the perimeter fence, and Razor let out a low growl, signaling that he had caught a scent. Zack focused his mind, reaching out to communicate with his loyal companion. "What is it, boy? What do you smell?" Razor's thoughts came to him in a rush of images and sensations. The scent was unfamiliar, but there was something about it that set the wolf's teeth on edge. It was the smell of death and decay, mixed with the acrid tang of chemicals. Zack's heart raced as he realized what Razor had discovered. The mining facility wasn't just extracting resources from Novaria's sacred lands. They were developing something far more sinister. With renewed urgency, Zack and Razor slipped through a gap in the fence and made their way towards the main building. They had only taken a few steps when the sound of gunfire erupted in the distance. Tharok and Skarl had begun their attack, and the guards were rushing to respond. Zack and Razor used the chaos to their advantage, darting through the shadows and into the heart of the facility. They navigated the twisting corridors, following the scent that Razor had picked up outside. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of guards. But these were no ordinary soldiers. They were massive, their bodies bulging with unnatural muscle, their eyes glinting with a feral rage. Zack recognized them immediately. They were the product of genetic enhancement, designed to be the perfect killing machines, and they were standing between him and the truth he sought. Razor let out a snarl and leapt forward, his teeth bared in a vicious grin. Zack drew his blaster and fired, the weapon bucking in his grip as he took down one of the guards. But the others kept coming, their movements too fast for Zack to track. He felt a searing pain in his shoulder as a blaster bolt grazed his flesh and he stumbled back, his vision swimming. Razor was a blur of fur and fangs, tearing into the guards with a savagery that Zack had never seen before. But even the mighty wolf was no match for the genetically enhanced soldiers. Just as Zack was about to give up hope, a deafening roar shook the walls of the facility. Tharok and Skarl burst into the room, their massive forms dwarfing even the enhanced guards. Together, the four warriors fought with a fury that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Zack felt a surge of energy coursing through his veins, and he fought with a renewed sense of purpose. Finally, the last of the guards fell, and Zack and his allies stood victorious amidst the carnage. But there was no time to celebrate. They still had to find the biological weapon and stop Ambassador Voss before it was too late. Zack hacked into a nearby terminal, his fingers flying over the keys as he searched for any information on the weapon. What he found made his blood run cold. The weapon was a virus, designed to target the genetic makeup of the Krellans and their animal companions. It would wipe them out in a matter of days, leaving the mining corporations free to exploit Novaria's resources without interference. But that wasn't the worst of it. The virus was already complete, and Ambassador Voss was on his way to the facility to oversee its deployment. Zack looked at Tharok and Skarl, his expression grim. "We have to stop him," he said, his voice thick with determination. "We can't let him unleash this weapon on your people." Tharok nodded, his yellow eyes blazing with a fierce light. "We will fight to the last breath," he growled, his words echoed by Skarl's rumbling bark. Together, the four warriors raced through the facility, their animal companions leading the way. They burst into the main laboratory just as Ambassador Voss was preparing to activate the virus. The corrupt politician spun around, his face twisting into a sneer as he saw Zack and his allies. "You're too late, Morrison," he spat, his hand hovering over the activation button. "The Krellans will be nothing more than a memory, and Novaria will be ours." Zack raised his blaster, his finger tightening on the trigger. "I won't let you do this, Voss," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Stand down, or I'll put you down." But Voss just laughed, a cruel and mocking sound that echoed off the walls of the laboratory. "You don't have the guts, Morrison," he sneered. "You're weak, just like the rest of your pathetic species." Zack's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could fire, Voss slammed his hand down on the activation button. The virus began to flow through the tubes and pipes of the laboratory, ready to be released into Novaria's atmosphere. Razor let out a howl of rage and leapt forward, his teeth sinking into Voss's arm. The corrupt politician screamed in pain and tried to shake the wolf off, but Razor held on with grim determination. Zack raced to the control panel, his heart pounding in his chest as he tried to abort the virus's deployment. But the system was locked down, and he couldn't break through the security protocols. Just as all seemed lost, Tharok stepped forward, his massive form looming over the control panel. He placed his hand on the screen, and to Zack's amazement, the system began to respond to his touch. "The Krellans built this technology," Tharok rumbled, his voice filled with a quiet pride. "We will be the ones to destroy it." With a final command, the virus's deployment was aborted, and the threat to Novaria was neutralized. Voss let out a howl of rage and frustration, but it was too late. He had been defeated, and the truth about the mining corporation's illegal activities would soon be exposed. As the dust settled, Zack looked around at his allies, his heart swelling with gratitude and respect. Razor, Tharok, and Skarl had fought bravely by his side, risking their lives to protect their world and their animal companions. Together, they had struck a blow against the corrupt forces that sought to exploit Novaria's resources and destroy its ecosystem. But Zack knew that the fight was far from over. The Galactic Alliance would not take this defeat lying down, and there would be more battles to come. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of triumph and relief. He reached down and scratched Razor behind the ears, feeling the wolf's tail thump against his leg in response. "Good job, boy," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "We did it. We saved Novaria." Razor let out a contented growl, and Tharok and Skarl added their own rumbles of approval. Together, the four warriors stood tall and proud, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For on Novaria, the bond between humans, Krellans, and their animal companions was stronger than any force in the galaxy, and with that bond, they would never be defeated. The stench of burnt flesh and acrid smoke filled the air as Zack and Razor stood face to face with Ambassador Voss and his ultimate weapon. The cybernetically enhanced super soldier towered over them, its massive frame bristling with high-tech weaponry. But it was the soldier's companion that truly struck fear into Zack's heart, a vicious, mutated bear, its eyes glowing with an unnatural red light, its body a twisted amalgamation of flesh and metal. Voss's laughter echoed through the ruins of the mining facility. "You're too late, Morrison," he sneered. With this soldier and his bear at my command, the Krelans will be wiped out, and Novaria will be mine. And there's nothing you can do to stop me." Zack gripped his blaster tighter, his jaw clenched with determination. "We'll see about that," he growled. The soldier and the bear charged forward, their movements a blur of speed and power. Zack and Razor leapt into action, their bodies moving in perfect sync as they dodged and weaved around their attackers. Razor's teeth sank into the bear's flank, tearing through metal and flesh alike. The bear roared in pain and rage, its massive paw swiping at the wolf with crushing force. Razor yelped as he was flung across the room, his body slamming into the wall with a sickening thud. Zack's heart raced with fear and anger as he saw his loyal companion fall. He turned to face the soldier, his blaster firing in rapid succession. But the soldier's armor was too strong, the bolts ricocheting off its surface like raindrops. The soldier closed in, its metal fists pummeling Zack's body with relentless force. Zack felt his ribs crack, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he struggled to stay conscious. But he refused to give up, refused to let Voss win. With a burst of desperate strength, Zack reached out with his mind, his consciousness brushing against the mutated bear's. He felt the creature's pain and confusion, the neural link that bound it to the soldier's will, and he knew what he had to do. Zack poured all of his energy into the mental connection, his thoughts beating against the neural link like waves against a dam. The bear roared in agony, its body convulsing as it fought against the soldier's control. "No!" Voss screamed, his face twisted with rage and fear. "You can't do this! You can't take my bear away from me!" But it was too late. With a final wrenching effort, Zack shattered the neural link and the bear's mind was free. The creature turned on the soldier, its claws tearing through metal and circuitry with savage fury. The soldier fell, its body twitching and sparking as the bear ripped it apart. Voss tried to run, but Zack was faster. He tackled the corrupt ambassador to the ground, his fists pummeling the man's face until he lay still and unconscious. Razor limped over to Zack's side, his fur matted with blood but his eyes shining with pride and affection. Zack hugged the wolf close, burying his face in the soft fur of Razor's neck. "We did it, boy," he whispered. "We won." The mutated bear lumbered over to them, its red eyes now a soft, gentle brown. Zack reached out with his mind, sending thoughts of gratitude and friendship. The bear rumbled in response, its massive head nuzzling against Zack's hand. In the days that followed, the truth about the Galactic Alliance's actions on Novaria was finally brought to light. The mining corporations were held accountable for their crimes, and the Krelans were granted full control over their sacred lands. A new treaty was forged between humans and Krelans, one based on mutual respect and understanding. Zack and Razor were hailed as heroes, their unique bond and the power of human-animal communication celebrated as a shining example of what could be achieved when different species worked together. As Zack stood before the cheering crowds, Razor by his side and Tharok and Scarl at his back, he felt a sense of pride and purpose that he had never known before. He had started this journey as a soldier, a warrior fighting for his own survival. But now he was something more, a champion of the Krelans, an ambassador of hope and unity in a galaxy that had for too long been divided by fear and greed. Zack looked out at the sea of faces before him, human and Krelan alike, and he knew that this was only the beginning. There were still battles to be fought, still wrongs to be righted. But with his animal companions by his side, and the power of communication and understanding in his heart, he knew that there was nothing they couldn't achieve. Razor nudged Zack's hand with his nose, his tail wagging with excitement. Zack grinned down at his loyal friend, scratching the wolf behind the ears. "Ready for our next adventure, boy?" he asked. Razor barked in response, his eyes shining with eagerness and anticipation. Zack laughed and turned to face the crowd once more, his voice ringing out strong and clear. "People of Novaria," he called out, "today we have won a great victory. But our work is not yet done. There are still many worlds out there in need of our help, many species crying out for justice and freedom, and we will answer that call no matter where it takes us or what dangers we may face." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices rising in a deafening roar of support and determination. Zack felt his heart swell with pride and purpose, his mind racing with the possibilities of what lay ahead. He turned to Tharok and Skarl, his eyes shining with excitement. "What do you say, my friends?" he asked. "Ready to take on the galaxy?" Tharok bared his teeth in a fierce grin, his yellow eyes glinting with anticipation. "The Creelans will fight by your side, Zack Morrison," he rumbled. "Wherever you go, we will follow." Skarl added his own bark of agreement, his massive form quivering with eagerness. Zack nodded, his heart full of gratitude and determination. Together, they set out into the galaxy, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For with the power of human-animal communication and the strength of their unbreakable bond, there was nothing they could not achieve. The stars were theirs for the taking, and the future was bright with promise and hope. Zack and Razor's ship blasted off from Novaria, leaving behind the ruins of the oppressors and the birth of a new era of peace and understanding. In the past, humans were seen as outsiders, their gift of communication with animals a mystery that bred fear and mistrust. But now, standing side by side with the Creelans, Zack and Razor were symbols of the incredible things that could be achieved when different walks of life learned to understand and trust one another. As the ship sped towards the twinkling blanket of space, carrying the brave commanders to their next mission, Zack gazed out the cockpit window at the beautiful green and blue world shrinking below them. They had saved an entire planet, an entire species, from tyranny and extinction. For the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of pride. Being different, being human, wasn't a curse. It was a gift that enabled them to connect, adapt, build bridges between worlds once believed unbridgeable. Razor climbed into the co-pilot's seat beside Zack. No words necessary. Zack grinned as he heard Razor's thoughts, sensed the wolf's matching swell of satisfaction, determination, readiness to continue their fight for good, wherever in the galaxy it might take them next. Razor's presence was a reminder that no matter how crazy the universe might get, Zack would never be alone. A light on the console blinked. An incoming transmission from Admiral Zora, humanity's stern but stalwart leader in the Galactic Alliance. Zack punched the button. Time to discover what heroic quest she had in store for them this time. He and Razor exchanged a glance, a smirk. No matter the odds they would face, the powers that would seek to divide and destroy, one thing was certain. There was no force in the universe stronger than the bond between a human and their animal. And armed with that knowledge, that unshakable connection, they would make the galaxy a better place, one planet at a time. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.